scoring the goals they deserve.
Live on lcfc.com, Facebook and Twitter, you're listening to the Pre-Match Pint, brought to you by Chang Beer.
Hello, good morning and welcome to LCFC Radio. Leicester City back in Premier League action, and after yesterday's action, it all went pretty well for the Foxes. We'll talk more about that very soon. Plenty more to come. The punny old game returns, of course, and we've got fantastic guests and coverage for the next 6 hours on LCFC Radio as Leicester City take on Burnley at Turf Moor. We have full commentary, of course, kick off at 2 o'clock. But for the next 2 hours, it's the Pre-Match Pint with me, Lewis Mason, and joining me in the studio at King Power Stadium, Steve Walsh is back. How are you, Walshy?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good to have you with us.
Good morning, everyone.
And a man making his LCFC Radio debut. He is back in Leicester. Brian Deane, how are you, pal?
I'm good, thank you.
Dino.
Good to have you
Good
back
few
with
bells.
us. I was going to say, we'll certainly talk about those.
Sheffield United and Leeds, and I got that slightly wrong, didn't I?
We will talk all about those battles, but Brian, what's it like to be back at Leicester when you're kind of driving into Filbert Way this morning?
Oh, it feels good, you know. I mean, it's like anything, you know. I've come down the M1. Turned in to come down. I've seen the Hilton on the left-hand side, and it just reminded me of when I spent my first kind of month in the hotel, and then coming along, instead of taking a right to go towards the training ground, I'm coming straight on. Great memories.
What do you think when you see the stadium?
Yeah, I mean, you know, fortunately for me, I was part of the team that moved in here. And it's got great memories for me. You know, the season that we spent in the Championship, a lot of adversity that season, but we managed to triumph in the end. But also I managed to score the first couple of goals there. So, great memories for me.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about those a bit more. But as you were saying, Walshy, you two were on opposing sides quite a few times as well.
Yeah, we were. I was just trying to remember everything. I was just heading all them footballs. I think I've got some damage. But yeah, they were great days, great memories. And I can recall Sheffield United was a real tough place. I'm talking when it was all standing as well, probably a bit slightly before. I'm older than Dino, so I remember. Was it Keith Edwards who played as well? I played against him, that's going back, and he was a class player, you know. But when I played against Dino, it was always a physical battle. It was hard. It was fair. We got on with it, and it was a tough match for us, and we knew. And I enjoyed them physical. We were just talking about that. That was my game. Was physical challenges, and I relished those. And we had some real tough games.
I used to hate it because I mean, it's okay when you're playing against one guy that's quite physical at the back. You usually used to expect that, but I remember a lot of the time when we played against Leicester, it was like you had Matty, Jerry and Walshy, and it was like there's no respite, you know, because wherever you go, you know, it's a tough physical battle, and it was quite draining. So in terms of preparation, you know, you'd have to prepare maybe a couple of days before for what you was going to be receiving.
Which one?
We received a bit from you as well, Dino, I can tell you.
Which one of them did you go to the most for a bit of rest?
I used to just come short.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, we didn't like that, you see.
Brilliant stuff. Plenty more to come today. Lots of people getting in touch. Ashal says, hello from Fiji. Good to have you with us. Also, Scooby, good to have you on the programme today as well. Ian says, good morning all. We'll try not to predict the score today. Just get the 3 points, please. Big job ahead, of course, for Leicester City heading to Turf Moor. What are you expecting today, Steve?
Yeah. Obviously, we need to bounce back from a little setback, really. You know, the last month has been difficult in a sense of results-wise. It's not been as fluent, not as that energy just seems to have been a little bit drained. Obviously, Christmas period is so vital and important. But there's no rest up. We've got, 5 games now, I think, in 12, 13 days now. So there's no respite at all. So, I'd just like to see us at it like we were, pressing and really closing people down, because against Southampton we just looked a little bit lethargic and tired, so which can be understandable at this time of year. And don't forget, we've got a young side developing and getting that knowledge, and and that resilience. So it'd be great today. It'd be a big boost for the whole club if we can get a win today, because you look at this table and there's a real big opportunity now. You know, the points where we are above 5th place is great, but you know, people can soon catch you if you slip a few more. So I expect a tough game. Always is up at Turf Moor. So we're set for a good game.
What have you made of Leicester so far this season, Brian?
I've only had an opportunity to see them live once. That was at Sheffield United, and I thought they were fantastic. I mean, the big thing about Leicester now is they've got some very good technical players, and they control the game up there, which, as you've seen from Sheffield United this year, they've been very good. They've played at a very good tempo, but I just felt at that time it was Tielemans in the middle and Maddison, and they were superb all the way through the side. You know, it was a very good structure the way it's obvious that Brendan Rodgers got the team set up. Everybody knows where everybody's supposed to be in possession, out of possession. They were excellent, and obviously you got the threat of Vardy up front. So he's, for me, and I said it then, he's a bit of a phenom in that there aren't many players like him, and what it does is, because of the threat of what he does, it means that a lot of the time you can't play deep, you can't play high line. So it means that the midfield players are going to get more time on the ball, and if they can control the game that way, a lot of teams struggle with that kind of quality.
They had such a rampant spell where they were almost unstoppable. It was kind of inevitable that there would be a slump of some sort. And they've had a really sticky couple of weeks, but that was expected, surely.
Yeah, sure. I think it's very hard to keep it up mentally as well. You you look at the top sides like your Liverpools and your Manchester Cities. You're bringing in players that are 40, 50 million pounds for a fullback. And the level of intensity at that level is always going to be scrutinised, and I think of course you're going to expect a dip from time to time at a place like Leicester, but like Steve says, it's a fantastic opportunity to go on and finish second. I think from the outside looking in, you look at the squad looks together. Certainly, I think the fans down here play a massive part in terms of the culture that's been built at the club in the last few years. So, everything's in the favour.
Yeah, talking about that table, of course, yesterday's results, which we'll talk about more very soon, really helped Leicester City. Man City dropping points, Chelsea losing as well, Steve.
Yeah, and that's why there's still that gap there. And, but you just look at the expectations of everyone at the minute. They're that high from the fans, and we've got to appreciate that. Look, we have got a young team, and we're going places. And if you'd have looked at, before we kicked a ball this season, what would have been your expectations as a fan? But once you start and get up there, people just expect, right, we're going to finish second. We're in this position, and what a chance! And of course, it is an opportunity. But if you'd have said, like I said at the start of the season, at Christmas time, would you be in both cups? Would you be third in the league, second in the league, whatever? I would have said no. And we are. So we're in a fantastic position. I think it's a regrouping situation. I think Ndidi, with the fluency that when we lost him, just interrupted the momentum that we had. And I just think that now we just got to get another win under. It doesn't matter how we play today, as long as we get the 3 points that listener said. I think that's just it'd be a big boost, and going into the back of some important games coming up, and very winnable ones, I'd say. It's an important month now.
Also important week that's just been, so that was the biggest amount of rest Leicester have had for a while. Yeah,
they've had a chance to get back to training and a bit of hard work, and Brendan's clever enough to know if they're tired, if they're whatever, and expect him to look at the team, and obviously he knows he's good at rotating. His tactics so far have been spot on. But when a player, what it's like, when you're playing on a Saturday and then you play we used to play on a Tuesday night, it was so hard to give your best on a Tuesday night, you were knackered, you know. And it was, especially for big fellas like us, your recovery levels. Obviously now it's a little bit different with how they
pitches
how they
and
looked
everything,
after. Yeah, pitches especially. You know, it was unbelievable. And like I say, Filbert Street in the double decker, and it used to, you know, you'd sink a foot in that, and it was very heavy pitches then, but you don't get it now.
Lisa's been in touch. Come on, Blues, you have got this. Also, Frida says, morning. Hope the lads do well today. Neil says, have to get back on track today, but Burnley are no pushover despite their current position. Paula says, Burnley will play deep today. We need to be ready for that. And Linda says, good luck. All the best from Scotland. Thank you so much for getting in touch. If you've got any questions for Brian or Walshy, then do let us know, of course, and we'll get them to them over the next couple of hours. Bubba's been in touch saying, morning. Morning, Bubba. Now we need Bubba because Bubba is the best at the punny old game. And, you know, we've got Brian here. I'm sure he's going to do a fantastic job, but it is his debut. Walshy, you know what this is all about. Our punny old game this week. What do you mean you're still what?
I'm terrible. You know I am at quizzes and anything like this, but I'll have a good go. I'll do my best, yeah.
This week, the punny old game where we need to make a team of footballers, but they have to have puns in their name related to our theme. Our theme? Well, going to Turf Moor. Where can you get some turf? The garden centre. Things you find at a garden centre is the theme of the punny old game. Get thinking on that while we play the first song from our pre-match playlist. And this week, the artists begin with B. It's Bastille.
Close your eyes. Does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like you've been here before? How am I gonna be an optimist about this? How am I gonna be an optimist about this? We were caught up and lost in all of our vices. In your poses, the dust settled around us, and the walls kept tumbling down in the city that we love. Great clouds roll over the hills, bringing darkness from above. But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like you've been here before? How am I gonna be an optimist about this? How am I gonna be an optimist about this? Oh, where do we begin? The rubble or our sins? Oh, where do we begin? The rubble or our sins? And the walls kept tumbling down in the city that we love. Great clouds roll over the hills, bringing darkness from above. But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like you've been here before? Oh, how am I gonna be an optimist about this? How am I gonna be an optimist about this? If you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all?
Bastille and Pompeii. It's LCFC Radio. The Pre-Match Pint brought to you by Chang Beer. Just gone 11:15 Sunday morning. Today it is Leicester City travelling to Turf Moor to take on Burnley in the Premier League. 2 o'clock kickoff, and we've got you covered right through the afternoon here on LCFC Radio. If you're just joining us, welcome. I'm Lewis Mason, joined by Steve Walsh and Brian Deane in the studio, and we are playing the punny old game. This week the theme is things you'd find in a garden centre. Anything, gents?
Well, we'll start with the keeper, haven't we? We've got to go Tim Flowers, of course.
Tim Flowers, he always
with that
gets
Leicester
there.
connection as well.
Okay, yeah. Brian?
Going for an ex-teammate of mine, Nuno Gomez.
Nuno Gomez. I like that. Actually, that's got me thinking. Nuno Gomez. Now, this is going to be a competition between this and Tim Flowers for goalkeeper, but Nuno is spirit level Santo.
Isn't that from a builder's merchants, though, a spirit level? Does that come from a garden centre?
I reckon you'd find one. I think you'd find one.
I don't think you would.
I think you'd find one.
I don't.
Should we get VAR on this one?
Yeah, I think we've got to go Tim Flowers, haven't we there, mate? You know what I mean? A spirit levels from a builder's merchants. It's got to be.
You killed him there, haven't you? Because you said you were going to use it.
Absolute joke. Producer Sam's come in with Lee Philpott.
Yep. We've got to tell you that. Yep, Lee Philpott set me up with a few crosses in the past.
Danny's got a couple coming in. He's gone for Tim Flowers as well, but also gone for Chagla Soyolunchu.
Yeah, it goes, doesn't it? It does go.
Okay, well...
It's not a classic, but it's...
We'll keep working on that then.
Yes.
Keep them coming. Things you'd find in a garden centre for the punny old game. Right, we mentioned yesterday's games very briefly. Let's have some reaction from the managers in the Premier League.
They would have had it in their under 10s, under 12s, youth team, under 23, whatever. The rules of football are if you control the game, you have to score goals to try and win it. We tried to do that. The lads gave everything. I can't complain with any amount of effort. And in fact, I thought the effort was fantastic. We were pushing and pushing. And that's why the heads are down now. But it's the reality of football.
We showed that if we are good in our topics, then we are competitive and we can win points wherever we go. And this is also the task. So we want to be brave at Tottenham and play our game. And we want to travel back then also with points.
We're going to solve it and improve it in there. So in that position to have to the back four there and not let them run. So it's simple. So in this situation we cannot let them run in this counter-attack.
I think the transformation has been very, very big. You know, a lot of things that I am asking them to do, they are doing them on daily basis, not just on the pitch. I'm really happy with the connection generated between team and fans as well.
People like Declan Rice and Mark Noble again were tireless in their work, so we could just do with a little bit more to help. But you know, the important thing is trying not to sign players which are no good to you. Sometimes it sounds sexy signing them. I'd rather buy players which are going to work rather than ones which aren't.
They showed a great resilience, and of course we've nicked it and sneaked it, whatever you want, but when you're playing against the big boys, then we have to look after the ball better, that's for sure. But overall, the way they've done it, you can't fault them to a man in their effort and endeavour.
We realised that first half was not good, and we reacted very well. I'm very proud of the players. I was proud even in the first half because I'm very aware of how we are doing things. So let's keep on going.
There we go. Some of the reaction from the managers in the Premier League after yesterday's games. Watford 0, Tottenham 0, Arsenal 1, Sheffield United 1, Brighton 1, Aston Villa 1, Manchester City 2, Crystal Palace 2, Norwich 1, Bournemouth 0, Southampton 2, Wolves 3, West Ham 1, Everton 1 and Newcastle 1, Chelsea 0. Quite a few headlines there. Where should we start? Probably the ones that affect Leicester City the most. Let's go with Manchester City against Crystal Palace. Obviously, Palace took the lead, surrendered the lead, and then got a really late equaliser. We've seen Palace go to Man City and get a result before. They're a bit of a bogey team for them.
Yeah, I think they've got pace, especially with Zaha. It causes them a little bit of a problem because if you look at where he plays and where he wants to play, the fullbacks at Manchester City usually push quite high, so that he'll exploit any space. And like you say, I think, you know, Roy Hodgson probably just says to the centre forwards, when you get into that final third, just do, enjoy what you're doing, go where you want, and that can be a problem as well if you're not sort of like playing in a normal structure. So, we saw, I think it was Andros Townsend last year scored goal of the season, didn't he?
Yeah.
and then they defended quite resiliently. So again, they do seem to be a bogey team. A lot of frustration for Pep, I think.
Yeah, one thing he won't be frustrated about is his striker, Sergio Aguero, 251 goals.
It's incredible.
For Man City.
Incredible, it really is. Man City will be annoyed with themselves for not kind of putting that game away. But, Palace, they only had one chance first half and got that chance. So when you look, Zaha is the threat. And normally, you'd see two men around him. He was isolated quite a lot, 1v1, which is not, what you want to be against Zaha. You're seeing a lot of games, people are backing the full back up and getting centre backs getting round just in case he gets past him. So he was left to pretty, a lot of freedom, and you can't give a player of that class and quality that much freedom. And in the end, they paid the price.
So that's just above Leicester City, meaning that today, if Leicester win, they go back level on points with Man City in second. But just below them, Chelsea, of course. Newcastle, late winner at St James's Park, and massive goal for Newcastle. But as Frank Lampard said there, Chelsea need to start taking their chances, because that's really where they're punishing themselves almost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Tammy Abraham, if I'm honest. But I just think at times he probably needs somebody to show him the way as well. And you'd think now that they've been able to open up the coffers, they might go into the market. But you have to be very careful as well, because if you bring somebody in and spend a lot of money, it then stunts the development of the younger players coming through. So that's a bit of, that's a conundrum for them. I think perhaps, more responsibility needs to fall on the midfield players to actually create opportunities by scoring goals themselves, because it sounds as though they're quite easy to mark. They know where the goals are coming from, so you can you can provide to block that up.
That comes in with the youth at Chelsea, doesn't it? The fact that they're going to learn these things and it's going to be an ongoing project.
Yeah, I still think they're doing very, very well. Chelsea, it was a bit of a blow for them yesterday. Newcastle again, they've just played to defend and wait for that one opportunity. And I read it yesterday. I could see that happening. Last kick of the game, I was sat watching it. Said to my mate, "You watch what happens here, Newcastle," and they did. But again, they've got to be ruthless. They've got to be, there's got to be better finishing, because there was a few good opportunities yesterday. That they're missing. They've got to somehow, the Hazard is a massive loss for them. As like they need a little Zola or someone around Abraham. I think he could be special then. And he's carrying the flag at the moment is Tammy Abraham, and a bit unfairly, he does need a bit of help and guidance, because when you're that age, you're raw, you're new, and you just need that older head somewhere to help you in that team. And you can see clearly that he's having to learn everything his own way at the minute. And obviously he's got a great manager who will help him, no doubt. But when you're on that pitch, it's different.
Let's go to Carrow Road, because that was arguably the biggest game of yesterday. I heard Darren Eadie talking in the build-up to it, still very heavily involved at Norwich, of course, former Leicester player too. Said it wasn't a 6-pointer, it was a 12-pointer, Norwich against Bournemouth. Norwich came out on top, and that's a huge result, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Bournemouth seem to be in free fall, really. I think certainly, if you're going into that game, Norwich, you see that as an opportunity to win. That's a game that you have to win. If you can't win that game at home, you've got a big problem. But equally so, Bournemouth, they sound as though they're down to the bare bones. I don't think, if I'm being honest, I don't think that some of the recruits he's brought in have really backed him up and done what they're supposed to do. But it's going to be a long season for them, I think, now, because I can't see where their next win's going to come from. The team looks devoid of any kind of confidence. I mean, Norwich have got, they've got a struggle on their hands, really. Anybody in that bottom four is going to struggle, but I think those two teams are really going to struggle to get out of the bottom three.
Yeah, it is obviously fascinating, isn't it, the relegation picture in the Premier League. The other team, Aston Villa, very much involved. Jack Grealish pulling them out of trouble again.
Yeah, and what a finish. I just saw it this morning, had a quick look, and Villa, they're fighting for their lives. They all are. There's about 7-8 teams there you can see, can quickly jump out of trouble, but also, Burnley, it's a big game for them today, because the pressure's on them. They're 2 points above the drop zone. So anyone in and around that area now at this time of year are going to be fighting for it, and you can see with the way Watford and Pearson are dragging themselves out at the minute. Great timing, good manager, and good, and got that spirit back. So, but you see the likes of Norwich. It's going to be very tough for them to get out of trouble. I expected them to win yesterday. I predicted on my forecast a 2-0 win, but Bournemouth, like you say, a lot of injuries. Villa coming up now. They've got obviously the semi-final of the cup, but the league, the status is got to be priority now for them. Although they've got a great opportunity at home against Leicester now, but. More importantly for them, I think, is the league status. And, Brighton's a tough place to go, and they got a point. And I think they'll be quite happy. They've got something, and they can look forward now to a few games that they've got before we play Leicester.
Before we move on, a quick word on your old club, Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Incredible things happening there.
Yeah, fantastic. It's just the way how Chris has managed the players. I think it's important, there's a real kind of steel about the way how he's come in and he's taken no nonsense. The players believe in him and he believes in them, and I think that comes through. They're enjoying what they're doing, but no, I mean they don't fear anybody. And I think as a player, if you're going to play a game and your manager is thinking that you're going to win the game, then that transmits to the players. So he's done a fantastic job, and I've watched them for 2-3 years now in the way they play, the system that he plays, and teams are finding it hard still to work it out. So all credit to Chris.
Yeah, big Saturday in the Premier League. Sunday continues with big games as well. Burnley, Leicester, and of course it's Liverpool, Man United later on as well. We'll talk about that game and plenty more build-up to Leicester's trip to Turf Moor, of course. Keep the punny old game guesses. There's plenty coming in. We'll go through some of those after Basement Jacks.
But don't worry, don't panic. Ain't nothing going on but history. Yeah, it's alright. Don't panic. And the music keeps on playing on and on. And the music keeps on playing on and on. Red alert, it's a catastrophe. But don't worry, don't panic. Ain't nothing going on but history, yeah. But it's alright. Don't panic. And the music keeps on playing on and on. And the music keeps on playing on and on.
Pre-Match Pint on LCFC Radio, brought to you by Chang Beer. Plenty more on the way, including the punny old game. We'll remember some very important goals that Deane scored, both in terms of the Premier League and, of course, the opening of what is now the King Power Stadium. More on that on the way after your latest news headlines.
You're listening to LCFC Radio.
Prince Harry and Meghan will no longer be working members of the royal family and won't use their Royal Highness titles anymore. Discussions over their future roles have concluded after they announced they want to step back from public duties. The couple say they'll do everything possible to uphold the Queen's values. Royal biographer Angela Levin says the way people see the monarchy is going to change.
Without Harry, who's been a great character and next in popularity to the Queen, I think it will be very difficult. There'll be much more of a dullness about it. He was an exciting person to see, full of mischief, brilliant with people.
Campaigners are welcoming new measures aimed at protecting anyone who's been stalked. From tomorrow, police will be able to apply for court orders which will stop alleged perpetrators from contacting victims while they're being investigated. Those who break the rules could end up behind bars for 5 years. The Susie Lamplugh Trust has described it as an important step forward. But Rachel Horman, who's a solicitor dealing with stalking cases, says she's worried the orders will be used instead of prosecutions.
That would be really dangerous for victims and means that they wouldn't be protected adequately, because one of these orders would not give, for example, a criminal conviction to the perpetrator.
The government is looking at moving the House of Lords out of London. It's one of the options being considered to ensure every part of the UK is properly connected to ministers. Students training to become paramedics, radiographers and physiotherapists are to get £5,000 government grants. New and continuing nursing and midwifery students in England were already going to receive the money from September. Premiership rugby champion Saracens have apologised for their mistakes and have accepted relegation to the second tier. In a statement, the club add that their goal is to rebuild confidence and trust following their persistent salary cap breaches. And in the cricket, rain has stopped play on day 4 of the third test between England and South Africa at Port Elizabeth. The hosts are 15 without loss in their second innings, trailing England by 275 runs. That's the latest. I'm Daryl Jackson.
LCFC.com, Facebook and Twitter. You're listening to the Pre-Match Pint, brought to you by Chang Beer.
Yes, welcome along. If you're just joining us, it's the Pre-Match Pint, brought to you by Chang Beer, with me, Lewis Mason, Deane and Steve Walsh with you. And later on, we'll catch up with Dan Bates and Jerry Taggart at Turf Moor. They've got Matchday Live, which follows us. And of course, there's full commentary from 2 o'clock of Burnley against Leicester in the Premier League. Right, quick look back at the punny old game, please, gents. Had a few come in here, including, I like this, from Janny, bit of a centre-back, Slaven Bilic. Yeah?
Slaven, yeah, got to give it, yeah,
Gotta
take
go
that.
Lots of goalkeepers coming in. Danny says Spruce Grobbler. We've also got, I don't think so, Mick, Gladiola Ranieri. No, Mick, come on.
No.
Anthony Gardner is a defender.
Standard.
Yeah.
That's quite nice. I also had Martin O'Neilling Pad has come in.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Well, instead of that reaction, have you got any for us, Walshy?
I've got one, Alan Shears. Alan Shearer, is it? Does that count?
Alan Shearser.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shearser. I've got...
Clutching, but we need someone
yeah,
up front.
I've got a Forest connection, Steve Stone.
Yeah.
Steve Stone
that's
and
good,
Lee Glover.
Hey, he did have a few up his sleeve.
Yeah, he's been quietly.
Brian?
Well, I've been writing them all down. I've got seeds fork, I've got rake, bucket, mower, strimmer. I'm trying to think.
You're doing well. Anything from you, Brian?
The only one I can think of right now, I'll have to get my thinking caps on, but Alex Patio. Alex Patio.
Got one more. I don't know if what you think about this,
Here
but
we go.
Socrates.
I'll tell you
You
what.
know what I mean? It's a connection, isn't there?
You
There's
keep thinking, because I need to talk about the local non-league scene, which has happened this weekend. So, boys, get back to that. And in the meantime, what's happened locally?
Mate, you're a connection.
Well, there was no game for Barwell yesterday after a pitch inspection because of the overnight rain in Bedfordshire. Meanwhile, Coalville Town's game, also in the Southern League Premier Division Central, went ahead as scheduled. Yesterday, they entertained Royston Town and were on the wrong end of a 4-1 scoreline. In the Northern Premier League South East Division, Loughborough Dynamo remained in 14th place despite not having a game yesterday. Over in the Midland Football Alliance, Heather St John's lost ground on the top two when they could only draw 1-1 with South Northampton Athletic. Kieran Clark with the Saints goal there. So on to the UCL Premier Division yesterday. Loughborough University travelled to Anstey Nomads. Here's Mayank Kabadi.
The Scholars drew 0-0 against Anstey Nomads in the United Counties League. Loughborough dominated possession in the first half but couldn't create many substantial chances. The defence looked solid at the back and dealt with some dangerous free kicks and corners. The biggest chance of the half fell to Connor Smith, whose header was just wide of the post. Second half saw more chances for the Scholars but nothing to show on the score sheet. Anstey had some big chances towards the end, but James Talon made some crucial saves to prevent a winner. A second consecutive draw sees Loughborough drop to 5th in the table.
Quorn, having suffered a slight drop in form of late, were worthy winners yesterday afternoon after they reminded Shepshire Dynamo that the chase for promotion isn't quite a one-horse race just yet, although their near neighbours do have 5 games in hand. Yesterday, Quorn travelled the relative short distance down the M1 and returned with a fine 3-1 victory over second-placed Rugby Town. After the game, we caught up with their manager, Willis Francis.
We was that comfortable in the first half that we had a full 90 minutes still in our tank, and that we just needed to up the tempo, up the pressure on them, and I'm sure that we'd get the right results. And early goal from Leo, second half, which is always helps, but the quality of play, they couldn't live with us, and down the wings in particular was getting a lot of joy. But what was really important and really good for us today was the final ball was so much better, and after a couple of weeks of not a great time, shall I say, for the lads to bounce back how they've done today is fantastic. So yeah, we're really pleased today, and we'll move on to the next one.
So with Rugby Town dropping points at the expense of Quorn, could Shepshire Dynamo respond in kind and go back to the summit of the United Counties Premier Division? Yesterday they travelled to the south of the county to take on Harborough Town. Here's their manager Damien Beckford-Quayle reflecting on Harborough 0, Shepshire 2.
For me, it was absolutely complete performance today from number 1 to number 11. To be fair, I thought every single player out there was outstanding today. Obviously, we played Harborough 4 times this season, so we tweaked the system, worked on it in training this week, and we reaped the rewards today. And the lads were absolutely outstanding too. Man, I can't praise them enough.
Finally, yesterday's other results in the UCL Premier. Lutterworth Town drew 1-1 with Oadby Town, and Leicester Nirvana won 4-0 away at struggling Sleaford. That's the latest from the local football scene.
This is the Pre-Match Pint, brought to you by Tang Beer.
Right then, plenty of giggling coming from you two during that section, which was highly off-putting, but I'm hoping that it's come up with some incredible answers for the punny old game. What you got, Walshy?
Well, I've got Graham Wheelbarrow.
Okay.
So he played for Wigan with me. I made my debut with him, and Deane would probably remember him. Big tough nut who played for, and he managed
Chester
Wigan
as well,
Athletic.
wasn't
That's right, Chester. Dino's come up with a classic keeper.
So I've gone for Jimmy Strimmer. Jimmy Rimmer, goalie, Villa goalie.
Love that,
and I'm just a former teammate of mine, if you're talking about things that are going to be in a garden centre, yeah?
Yeah.
Stephen Oaktree.
Oh, yeah.
Stephen Oakes.
Oaktree. And there was Ian Bird, one of your probably a Leeds United player, I remember. Ian Bird Seed.
Ian Bird Seed. Yeah, I'll tell you what, they're good. Keep them coming. Jamie Sowcroft.
This is the
comes
best
in
I've
from
done.
Sean. And Sean also goes for Rob Greenhouse. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Danny says Stan Cauliflowermore. Not sure about that, Danny. And Sean goes for Mucky Is It.
Mucky is it? Mucky. No, I can't have that.
Not too sure on that one. Actually, I don't think my dad's got too much to do today because he's been sending me a whole list on the
Has he?
text. Yeah. Jose Mourinho as manager.
Yeah, that's good.
And goalkeeper Gary Sprake.
Yeah.
Leeds and
Yeah.
Birmingham.
Ah,
apparently.
got
Quite a
one.
lot of
There you go.
keepers, then, haven't we?
We've got so many goalkeepers.
Matty Piper.
Oh,
Pipe.
that's a good one,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, Matty Piper.
Keep
Good old
them coming
Pipes.
on the penny
Pipes.
old game.
You know, I was at the Mercury Sports Awards on Thursday night, and they do the stand-up bingo. Have you done
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
so
yeah.
you put tenner in for one of these strips. So you got to stand up. And if they call your number out, you sit down. So Pipes got to the last on stage. You know, they bring them all up on stage. So he's got up on stage and he's gone down to the last three, gets into the final, wins it. He gets 800 quid's worth of lumbers, handbags and stuff for his missus, so he's well pleased.
Hey, I tell you, that happened
Yeah.
to me once. I did the same thing. I was at Leeds United, and I ended up sort of like giving it, because it was done in conjunction with a charity, and I ended up giving most of my money back donating it back to charity. I was thinking afterwards, I could have done with a few quid at the time.
God,
as well.
yeah, it's mad. Just one more quick story. I
No, go
remember
for it.
when I was at the Grand Hotel in Leicester in the early days, and George Best and Alex Higgins came down, and I was on a table, and they were top table. Obviously, they were drunk, both of them, and a lady won a fantastic crystal clock. These glass thingy clocks. And so Alex Higgins had hold of it and he presented it to her when she came up on the stage. And as she came up, he just threw it up in the air and it shattered in pieces everywhere. It's just, bizarre. Things that he used to do. And they were just smashed. It was unbelievable.
Thanks, Steve Walsh,
There you
for
go.
that
Just thought,
insight.
it just came to mind. Just quite interesting.
Actually, I had a message come in earlier from a listener who said, "Oh, boys, you should get together and do a charity match." You do quite a few of the kind of charity games. What are they like to play?
Yeah,
when you kind of renew those.
It's getting hard
acquaintances.
now. I need 2 new knees, and I'm struggling. I'll turn out when we're short of numbers, and that's what's happened over the last 2 years. So. In fact, Deane, I might be asking you, I might be speaking to you actually, because something might be developing with the club, so fingers crossed.
Well, I'll say now, I'll certainly come down. I'd love to come to the event, but I had a hip replacement a few years ago.
Yeah,
which,
you can't.
No, it feels fantastic now, but I've suffered for a long time, and what I used to do is I used to play in a lot of these charity games, and you get the date and you go, yeah, I'll play it, and then it creeps upon you, and then you get on the pitch, don't you, and you start going for a warm-up and you're thinking, hang on a minute, my chest is burning, and you don't prepare properly, and it's really dangerous, if you don't, and so I kind of, as much as I'd like to play, I think, my body's in bits. It might look all right, but it's just because I've got clothes on.
What you find with those games, though, I've played in a couple of those games as kind of like radio man, and you got ex-pros playing with you, and you think, oh, okay, I'll have the fitness, I'm young enough, I can get around the pitch. But the speed of thought, the brain power behind the ex-pros is incredible, and it is just that footballing brain, isn't it, to use a cliche, Brian?
Yeah, it's just because we know where to go, we know where to receive the ball, and we don't always follow, we don't always ball watch. We just know instinctively where somebody should be running, where you should be receiving, and so on. So it's quite funny because sometimes you get those games and there are some guys who, they'll guest with you and they are really good. And some of them do think, I could have given this a go, don't you? But you're probably old enough to be their dads a lot of the time.
Right. The main problem is now you're not getting any younger, and you'll play against some teams. They'll put the first team in of and you've got no chance, absolutely no chance, and it gets quite embarrassing. So we always say now, if we playing against people, it's got to be a vets game and so on. So otherwise, we've just
walking football.
Yeah, walking football would probably be the better thing to do now.
Very on topic at the moment. It's just coming up to, it's just gone 11:45. It is Sunday morning. We're getting ready for Leicester City's trip to Burnley, and we will be catching up with Dan Bates and Jerry Taggart at Turf Moor after Blondie.
meet ya. I'm gonna meet ya. I'll meet ya. I will drive past your house, and if the lights are all down, I'll swing around. One way or another, I'm gonna find ya. I'm gonna get ya, get ya, get ya, get ya. One way or another, I'm gonna win ya. I'll get ya, I'll get ya. One way or another, I'm gonna see ya. I'm gonna meet ya, meet ya, meet ya, meet ya. One day, maybe next week, I'm gonna meet ya. I'll meet ya. And if the lights are all out, I'll follow your bus downtown. See who's hanging out. One way or another, I'm gonna lose ya. I'm gonna give you the slip, or slip on a hip or another. I'm gonna lose ya. I'm gonna trick ya. I'll trick ya. One way or another, I'm gonna lose ya. I'm gonna trick ya, trick ya, trick ya, trick ya. One way or another, I'm gonna lose ya. I'm gonna give you the slip. One way or another, I'm gonna get ya, I get ya, I get ya, get ya, get ya, get ya. One way or another, I'm gonna get ya, I get ya, I get ya, get ya, get ya, get ya. One way or another, I'm gonna get ya, I get ya, I get ya, get ya, get ya, get ya. One way or another, I'm gonna get ya, I get ya, I get ya, get ya, get ya, get ya. One way or another, I'm gonna get ya, I get ya, I get ya, get ya.
There we go, Blondie, One Way or Another, LCFC Radio. You're listening to the Pre-Match Pint, brought to you by Chang Beer. Just coming up to 10 to 12. Plenty of people getting in touch with today's punny old game. It's things you find in a garden centre, seeing as we're going to Turf Moor today. There we go. James has been in touch with Lawn Mower Salah. Lawn Mower Salah?
Yeah.
What about, I'm sure I had another one come in. Oh, yeah. Now, this is a good one. This, from Janny, is Pondus Camargue.
Pondus.
Pontus.
Mm.
Pondus.
Pond.
Pondus.
Pond.
Oh. I thought I would have got a better reception,
it does,
I'll be honest.
I've got one. Graham Barrow, Wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
Graham Wheelbarrow.
You've already-
He played for.
you've already-
Oh, have I
you've
done that
already-
one? Okay, then. Well, okay, you're getting me back now, aren't you? Tom Heaton. Tom Heaton.
We've done, how many goalies have we gone through?
Gone
Come
about
on.
5, but
I
there's
need
some good
I need
ones
some
there.
midfielders, hence why
I think
put
Jimmy
Lord
Strimmer was the
Morris.
best.
Yeah, Jimmy Strimmer might well come in to that. We are going to chat to the guys at Turf Moor very soon, but before then, we haven't had a chance to rerun this, as if you haven't heard it so many times before, Brian.
Carl Bradshaw with the long throw. Cork waiting on the edge of the 6-yard area, and Deane scores!
The first goal in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Does it ever get old, hearing it, seeing it, and knowing that you have that piece of history?
No, you know what? It's nice. I never, when it happened, I didn't really think that it was anything other than, you know, in the days you used to think as a forward you need to score as quickly as possible, so that if so that you're not sort of like going 3, 4, 5 games without scoring. So at the time I just thought, well, I've got a goal again on the first game of the season. And then at half time, somebody came up to me and says, "Oh, you scored the first goal today." And I thought, "Oh wow, okay." And then all the rest of the time through my career, nobody really mentioned it at all. And then it was when I finished playing, that people started talking about, oh, Brian, you scored the first goal in the Premier League, and it was like, yeah, okay. And it's just snowballed every year. Every year it's the same, and it's been great. I did an advertisement this year when Sheffield United got back in, and that was featured and all of those. So it's nice for me. It's a nice legacy. It's good to tell people about when I'm old and grey, even though I'm already old and grey. But yeah.
Well, it's a fantastic achievement to have, and obviously a nice piece of history. There's another piece of history with another first goal, if you like. We'll talk about that very soon, but in the meantime, let's head off to Turf Moor and say afternoon to Dan Bates. How are you?
Good afternoon, Lewis. Good afternoon, Walsh.
All right, Dan.
Hiya.
How you doing?
Is this Jerry arrived yet?
No
Or is he
sign
still
of
eating
Jerry
some
yet.
pies in
no
the...
sign of Jerry.
yeah.
We've not seen him
Jerry.
yet. He does like the pies and hospitality on
He
offer
does.
at Burnley, so he'll be down there enjoying that, I'm sure.
And how are things in Burnley? I'm expecting pretty chilly today.
It is, it's cold, but the sun's shining. It looks fantastic from the viewpoint that we have at Turf Moor. You're looking right over the Lancashire hills, so it looks great here. But yes, very, very cold up here and a little bit wet too, but yeah, very sunny at the same time.
Or it doesn't really matter about the conditions. For Leicester City, one thing in mind, and that is bouncing back.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I think that they'll come here. I mean, all the talk's been dominated about both teams potentially on a bit of a run, if you like, that they wouldn't like, Burnley more so than Leicester. So obviously it poses a great opportunity for Leicester to come here, repeat what they did last season, get all 3 points. Hopefully they won't have a man sent off after 4 minutes, just as they did last season. Harry Maguire, of course, being sent off very early in that one, but the 10 men battled brilliantly that afternoon for the 3 points. And Brendan Rodgers will be hoping for the same again today, I'm sure.
And you're with us from 1 o'clock, obviously full commentary from 2, live from Turf Moor, but what can we expect on Matchday Live in the build-up?
Yeah, team news, as soon as you come to us at 1 o'clock, then we'll hear from Kaglar Soyuncu, Christian Fuchs, Brendan Rodgers, of course. We'll take a closer look at Burnley and hear from their manager, Sean Dyche, as well. And Jerry Taggart will be here with John Dunn for every single kick of this Premier League clash today.
There we go, Dan Bates at Turf Moor, and he'll be with us from Matchday Live from 1 o'clock. In the meantime, he's going to go and tuck in some of that hospitality, and we'll find out where Burnley rank in our Hospitality League a little bit later on. You mentioned Harry Maguire there, Steve, this week named Manchester United's captain. What an incredible achievement for Harry.
Yeah, it seems the natural progression for him. Solskjaer, that's what Man United have needed, a leader. And he's got the, great qualities that go with captaincy. So, I think that was just a straightforward thing. I think they need that voice. Whether he is that voice on the pitch, sometimes I don't know. He seems to me, most of these leaders on the pitch, you've got to control everything, and sometimes I don't always see that. I don't think he's like the ultimate captain, but he's the role model. He's certainly the right thing for Man United at this time.
But you can tell by his maturity in the way that he left Leicester City as well. The fact that he's got a real good head on his shoulders.
He has, and he will be very, very good. They need the right partner to play alongside him now, because I don't believe that they have, and then I think things will happen for Man United. But it's still the rebuilding. It's going to take a little while, I think. Yeah, they're nowhere near right, and. But Harry's got an opportunity, and I think for Man United, it's the right thing to do at this moment in time.
Yeah, even 3 years ago, Brian, if you'd said to Maguire in 3 years' time you would have achieved all this in your career, he would have snatched your hand off, wouldn't he?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I saw him at Sheffield United as a kid, and he actually played in the Youth Cup final against Manchester United, and they had Pogba, Ravel Morrison, Lingard, and all of these guys who have come through. And look, I mean, at the time I looked and I thought, I'm not sure. But I tell you what, prove me wrong. He's been fantastic. He's grown. He's got a huge presence on the pitch. And I think that's what I wasn't seeing, the development in him physically. But you see it now. I've seen him up at Sheffield United. He came to watch a game up there, and he's a big lad, isn't he?
Yeah, I tell you what, I met him the end of last season, I think it was, and Leicester City just down in one of the rooms, and you don't realise. And even pitch side, when him and Wes were coming out once, I thought, Jesus, look, I look small towards him.
He's
And
a big boy.
yeah, big lad. And but he just seems to stroll around like a Rolls Royce. He just reads the game so well. And obviously, when he dribbles the ball out, he's got great feet. He's got good vision. And now, I think he will become a very, very good captain. Albeit at this moment, I don't. He's not the complete captain, but he definitely he's got all the qualities. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I saw him. The biggest improvement I saw was when he came to Leicester, because he played on the left hand side and he used to come out with the ball, like you say. And when he gets to that stage at Manchester, they're probably thinking that's what they want. But I think because of the team he's playing in at the moment, he's not.
Absolutely, and he's
able to do
just
that.
been found out a little bit, but I'd like to see him more boss everybody around and really give instructions out, because I don't always see that from him, and that's important when you're at the back captain. You've got to boss everything.
Yeah, massive congratulations to Harry Maguire, named Manchester United captain this week. Right, still to come, we'll have a history lesson with Hutch as we go back in time and look at some classic encounters with Burnley. So Brian, Steve, have a little think about your favourite memories of playing at Turf Moor, and we'll have more on that after Blur.
The Pre-Match Pint, brought to you by Tang Beer.
LCFC Radio, it's the Pre-Match Pint, brought to you by Chang Beer, Blur, and a very short song. That was song 2, and it's just gone 12 o'clock. It's midday, which means we need to finish off our game of the punny old game. Any more for me? Brian, you had one on the verge.
I'm not. I'm not sure about it now. We had a little chat and I got a little bit of a slap, didn't I? You give me a bit of a
No, not really. I
said...
I think you've come up... The Jimmy Rimmer one, that's classic for me.
I went for Jimmy Grass, but it should be Glass.
Oh, that's poor, isn't it?
Poor, yeah, well, poor.
We'll go for Jimmy Strimmer. We'll keep Jimmy Strimmer in goal. We are a little bit short.
I've run out of
midfield,
ideas
I have to say. So we'll stick a couple in there. So what we're going to go with is Jimmy Strimmer in goal. Pondus Kamark. I don't care if you don't like it, Walshy, but it's going in there. Chagla Soyuncu. Slaven Bilic. Anthony Gardner. Lorne Moa Salah. Martin O'Neilling Pad. Lee Philpott, Nuno Gomez up front with Alex Patio.
Pato, yeah.
And we've had a man sent off. So we got 10. Oh, Fee might have saved us. Robert Snodgrass. Let's whack him in midfield.
Yeah.
God, there's always Fee to save us. Good stuff. That is the punny old game, of course, and it will be back next time on the Pre-Match Pint. Still to come today, plenty more, including talk on impact or instant impact. Just following on from Conor McGregor winning in 40 seconds last night in his UFC fight. So we want to know, in terms of football, what are the very best impact? Maybe from the subs bench, we'll talk about that. The quickest goal scored, or maybe, Walshy, you remember when you conceded a goal very, very quickly in a game. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but actually there's something we didn't talk about, Brian, because we had to go to Turf Moor. We talked about the first Premier League goal. The first goal at the Walkers Stadium, as was. That one, I guess, was a bit different to the Premier League one because it felt like definitely something new. There was a transition, moving period. Mm-hmm. You knew it was a massive occasion that time.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, there'd been a lot of, there was the issue at the beginning of the season with NTL and all the rest of it. And, brand new stadium. I remember we trained here the week before to get rid of it. Not get rid of it, get used to it. And it, we were like, wow, this is fantastic. So, first game of the season, Watford come up. Funnily enough, Sean Dyche was playing at the back. And, we the first goal, I can't remember the first goal was a header or it was, I can't remember which way round it was, but again, like you say, the two goals were brilliant. It was a brilliant day. It was sunny. Fans were happy. And I got that record as well. So I was, I'm chuffed. And, I went out and had a look at the pitch before we came on air and just kind of reminiscing a little bit. And it's nice feeling.
Another piece of history, of course, and a really wonderful one that Leicester fans will remember. If you've got memories of those first goals at the now King Power Stadium, then do let us know and let us know what you remember of them. From Brian, talking about history, here's Hutch with a bit of a lesson for us.
Welcome to History with Hutch, with me, Dan Bates, and of course the man of the moment, John Hutchinson, our club historian. We're looking at 3 games away at Burnley. John, and we'll go all the way back to 1982 for our first one.
Yeah, it was a remarkable game, really, Dan. Burnley 2, Leicester City 4. It was Gordon Milne's Leicester City. In the 7th minute, City conceded a penalty which Mark Wallington saved. In the 11th minute, Trevor Stephen put Burnley ahead. On the half hour, Paul Ramsey, Leicester's fullback, was sent off for pushing a player, but 10-man Leicester fought back and Lineker equalised 5 minutes before half-time. 5 minutes into the second half, Burnley's Steve Taylor restored Burnley's lead with a goal which was clearly offside. 2 minutes later, Burnley's keeper Alan Stevenson was sent off for bringing down Lineker. Alan Smith, exploiting the fact the goalkeeper had gone off, scored in the 70th and the 74th minute, making the score 4-2. But there was still more drama to come. Leicester's Kevin McDonald conceded a penalty, but Wallington saved this with his second penalty save of the game.
Wow, thrilling game. Blimey, I mean, you don't see many games that have 3 penalties, 2 of them saved, only 1 of them scored. We'll go to much more recent history for our final 2 games. The first of the 2 came in a brilliant season.
This is Wood, and that is a thunderbolt! The sort of goal that tells you're on your way to the championship.
Yeah, this was another promotion season. It was when Leicester City won the Championship in 2014. The game was at Burnley on the 29th of March. Burnley 0, Leicester City 2. It was a top-of-the-table clash. Championship leaders Leicester took a huge stride towards promotion back to the Premier League with this victory over second-placed Burnley. Burnley had been unbeaten at home all season and were unbeaten in 16 games. David Nugent opened the scoring with a lovely curling effort into the bottom corner of the net, beating Tom Heaton. Anthony Knockaert hit the bar with a rasping drive as Leicester looked for a second before Burnley's Scott Arfield shot straight at Kasper Schmeichel. But substitute Chris Wood's dipping strike from 25 yards out gave Leicester a deserved win. The victory extended Leicester's unbeaten run in the league to 19 games, took them 6 points ahead of their opponents, Burnley, with a game in hand, and they were 15 points clear of third place Queen's Park Rangers. At the end of the season, all three of these sides went up.
Yeah, that game pretty much secured promotion, I guess, in the end, didn't it?
Yeah.
The final game, obviously, that secured promotion to the Premier League. This was involved in the Premier League, and another huge game in the Great Escape.
Oh, there's a chance for Leicester, it's into the net, my goodness! Vardy, a second opportunity as Heaton held the ball out, and Vardy was there! Within a minute, a transformation in fortunes here!
Yeah, we keep coming back to the Great Escape, but it was such a momentous occasion. 25th of April 2015, Burnley 0, Leicester City 1. The top two teams from the previous season, Leicester and Burnley, were now fighting it out at the bottom of the Premier League. This was the fourth game and the fourth win in the Great Escape when Leicester, 7 points adrift from safety at the beginning of the run, won 7 and drew one of their last 9 matches. On the hour, with the score at 0-0, and seconds after Schmeichel had saved well from Danny Ings, Matty Taylor should have given Burnley the lead from the spot, but he hit the post. A minute later, Jamie Vardy scrambled in the winner to lift Leicester out of the Premier League relegation zone for the first time in 5 months. It was his third goal in 5 games. It secured a 4th straight win, while Burnley were left 5 points from safety at the bottom of the table. It was the first time since 1966 that Leicester had won 4 successive top-flight games.
It was crazy, that, wasn't it? That minute where Burnley hit the post from the penalty, you thought, that goes in.
Yeah.
Leicester could be back in trouble again, and less than a minute later, they're ahead.
Yeah, it was like the Watford playoff in reverse, wasn't it? yeah. But it was a vital win and kept the momentum going in that Great Escape.
Stay with us on LCFC Radio for Matchday Live with Dan Bates and Jerry Taggart.
There we go, a bit of a history lesson from Hutch, a look back in time at some great games against Burnley and plenty more to come. Hopefully this afternoon, more memories for Leicester. Chris says 3 points today would be a very good return and would set us up for the rest of this busy month. Come on, you Foxes. Anne says other results went our way yesterday, so a win would be brilliant, keeping us up there and well above Chelsea. Here is hoping. Obviously some memories there from games against Burnley, but Brian, Steve, any memories of your own of playing at Turf Moor?
You go first if you want.
Yeah, I scored a hat-trick there in the FA Cup when I was at Sheffield United. And it was, I remember talking about being aggressive. I remember somebody had nearly knocked my front tooth out, and I think I just turned into a raging bull, and I scored a hat-trick after about 30 minutes. So, that's my one memory of Burnley. I think we won 4-1 or something.
It's a ground that's good to quieten down quite quickly, isn't it? Because they do get behind their team there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird place because, like you say, we're just saying that there's a lot of. If you look out of the back of the stadium, it's got some beautiful countryside. Not your usual kind of built-up area, but I always found it a little bit. The mood there sometimes is a little bit weird. You know, it can be really quiet. Like you say, if you get them and you quieten them down, the atmosphere's dead. You know, which is nice if you're an away player and it means you're doing something good.
Yeah, especially when they're struggling at the moment. Leicester will be hoping to do just that this afternoon. Any memories for you, Walshy, of Playing turf
Not a
more?
lot with Leicester, to be honest with you, but obviously good old Lancashire town from where I came from, and my memories really with Wigan Athletic a lot, you know. So I used to play the regular in the old local derby games, and but nothing stands out to me with Leicester. I've not really, you know, no goals really that were important that I scored or can really remember too much. So, but it is a tricky ground to go to, especially the way that I shall set up today, and Chris Woods will be at it. You know, I think that's an important thing we've got to get right, is how we play Chris Woods. He's obviously, we know his strengths. So maybe keep a higher line than normal. He's not one to be running into channels or anything, but you get any set pieces or, you know, his feet, he can hit a ball, as he proved in that in the when we won the title. You know, I can still remember visually that goal he scored. So he is a goal threat. He can finish, no doubt about that. But we've got to keep him high up the field, I feel.
Yeah, Barnes started the season well as well.
Yeah, he's. I've been really impressed with him because over the last couple of seasons he's scored a lot of goals, different types of goals as well. But he's a real physical presence in the box as well. So between them are quite difficult. You know, if they're getting the ball in wide areas and they're putting crosses in, they pose a real threat.
We were talking about memories. Do you remember this one, Brian? Mick's been in touch. Remember being at Brighton on a Friday night. Game was delayed, nearly called off because of fog. We saw nothing, but we heard that we scored when the players cheered and Brian Deane came running to us out of the fog. We won 1-0.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't remember a lot about the game, but I do remember because Brighton had, I think Bobby Zamora was playing for them at the time. And it was one of those games where, you know, I'm sure Steve will tell you, if you play on a Friday night and you win, then it's a real kick in the, you know, it's a real kick in the guts for for your rivals, because they think, oh God, we got to go there we got to go and play on Saturday, and we got to win. They've got the 3 points. So it was, yeah, it was a strange time, because even when we went training, I think we trained on a park pitch, you know, with dogs and everything, you know, back in the day. But yeah, the 3 points down there was good, because it was, you know, it's a long way away, a horrible journey and all of that. So it was good to come away with 3 points.
There you go, Mick. Thank you for bringing up that memory. And yeah, one that Brian certainly remembers. The memory clearly not that foggy. On the way, plenty more to come, including talking about instant impact and also 500 games up for a certain Premier League referee. More on that after Boston.
Start my day and lost myself in a song. closed my eyes and she slipped away. She slipped
You're listening to the Pre-Match Pint, brought to you by Chang Beer on LCFC Radio. Just coming up to 20 past 12 today in the Premier League. It is at Burnley against Leicester City, and we have got you covered if you're not on your way to Turf Moor. We have got the Matchday live programme straight after us at 1. That's the first time you'll hear any team news today, and then full commentary from 2 o'clock live from Turf Moor. But still to come here, we'll be talking about a referee who's just passed 500 games in the Premier League and that thing called VAR. But before we get to that, Conor McGregor won his UFC return in 40 seconds in Las Vegas. We were watching that earlier, Brian, and kind of said, if you had paid all those hundreds of pounds to watch that fight, you'd be fuming,
Short
wouldn't you?
night, yeah.
It was very short. It was over very quickly, but it also makes me think if we transfer that to football, an instant impact, maybe from the subs bench or goals scored. What do you remember your quickest goal you scored, Brian?
Jeez. No, you might have to go to the first game of the Premier League again.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think there was a couple. I remember one time I was down at when I was at West Ham. I think there was a situation where I came on at half time and made an instant impact there. We ended up we were 2-0 down. I came on and we ended up winning 3-2. And raging I was because I wanted to play from the start. And Alan Pardew took the team talk type thing, and afterwards he kind of said to me, "Oh, well, we wouldn't have done this without Brian." And I was crying. I was nearly crying because I was, when you get to an older age, you want to play every minute of every game, and I felt that I was playing well enough to stay in there. And he asked the lad to give me a round of applause because I'd made a quick impact and it turned things around. But no, I don't know really.
Did you start the next game?
No. In a word, that was me. I was, I defined myself, I think, by coming on. I was the kind of special teams guy after that, and but it didn't work. We tried it in the cup final. We got to the playoff cup final against Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace scored. I think it was Neil Shipley, and then I remember I'd gone in. It was at Cardiff, and I'd gone in to go to the toilet, and I just heard I said, ch, and it was Nigel Reo-Cocker going, Deansy, the gaffer wants. I thought, here we go again, But no, come on, didn't, and it's not nice when you're getting older, innit, Steve?
Yeah.
You kind of get to the point where you're thinking, I need to play because it's coming to an end, and obviously, time moves on. The team's got to develop. So yeah.
You have to say Solskjaer was one of those players, wasn't he? That was his career was that kind of super sub thing. That it was a tag that, as you say, if we sat down with him now, he probably wouldn't actually like that. But it was something that he was so good at.
I think if you're at Manchester United, there's a big difference. You got the kind of players that we had around him, and I think he's a good professional. But I think you can take it if you're winning medals, and if you go anywhere else, you're not going to get that kind of exposure and impact. But yeah, It's.
I think it's hard to be a substitute and have that instant impact when you come on. It's not an easy thing to do. Come on as a sub anyway, is it? And sometimes you can be dragged on very quickly and not even ready for it. But you go through the years where there's a lot of players who are really good. And Fairclough, remembering the Liverpool and super sub as they called him. So you look back and think there's certain players who just weren't good enough to do 90 minutes and have that effect, but they were brilliant as a substitute, and you could rely on them to come on and cause an impact.
You see the guy who's Haaland. Erling Haaland last night come on and scored a hat-trick, didn't he?
That's unbelievable.
Great hat-trick as well.
Yeah. The only thing my memory of an instant impact, it's not me in a game, because there wasn't a lot of my impacts were very late in games or last minute, 96 minute or whatever. As many of late goals, but. Remember the keeper Spider Calac who came to Leicester, Kevin Poole, who played Crystal Palace in the playoff final, and when you look, because we thought it was going to go to penalties, and Claridge scored that obvious winner in the last minute, but he took Kevin Poole off and kind of distracted Palace totally, and you've got this big 6'8" giant keeper coming on, and we scored that winner instantly. It was unbelievable. So that's the only impact kind of thing I can really recall. But like I said, my goals were all last minute.
I guess from a defender's point of view, when you see a player getting ready, the opposition are throwing their last dice, if you like, and sending on someone. Mentally, you've got to be really ready for that, haven't you? Because you could see a guy coming on thinking, right, he's a different type of player. That's why they're introducing him. And you've got to think about how you're playing the game.
Well, I think, Leicester, we used to do it a lot, is throw one of the defenders up, which was always an impact, really. And that worked a lot because teams, they would expect it from us, but it was a weapon.
Know how to deal with it.
No, and we just launch it, and it's very difficult sometimes when you're trying to scramble through and get through the game when you've got some big lads just go and just launch it in there and cause problems, and it happened a lot.
Well, you're right, because I remember, like what Steve is saying, and the problem you've got is if you put one of the centre halves, because that's what you used to do, didn't you? You played three at the back. And it was either you or Matty would go and play centre forward, and then what would happen is a big centre back going up front. Who's taking the responsibility? So it always caused an issue for the defenders, or I'll go pick him up. So who's picking up my man? Those kind of things, and it's amazing how well that worked for you guys.
Yeah, you don't see it now, do you? You don't see that happen. But I still think, what frustrates me sometimes is when you need to get back in a game, why don't they try it and just look? Let's just change the tactics, because if you play it right, it's a tactic and you get the midfield supporting. When you've thrown two big men up, and even if the defenders win the ball, it comes down to you in a position, and it just gets you. I don't know. It just forces errors.
You know what? It's just reminding me of something, because when I went to manage in Norway, I remember us being 1-0 down in a game, and one of my centre halves went and did it, and I didn't tell him to do it. Guess what happened? We got done on the counter. So we lost 2-0.
Yeah, you're giving some stick there.
Yeah, I was furious, because you just think, what? Let's just. So it's got to be. You've got to be organised when you do it. I think that's the thing. Obviously at the time Leicester had a plan. They went to probably 4 at the back at the time then. And it was, they could pull people out. Maybe the winger went and played left back. Maybe if it was Steve Guppy or whatever. Right, and then, but if you don't know what you're doing, it can cause a lot of issues as well.
Yeah. In terms of when you're up front, and you were talking earlier about those battles against Walshy, Matt and Jerry, I guess actually having someone else thrown on up with you when you handle that responsibility of those battles, does that give you a bit more freedom, or at least you're going to take the brunt and give them some more freedom?
Yeah, it depends who you're actually playing against. I mean, sometimes you throw another forward on, and it might not be a physical battle. If you think about it, it's been a bit of a war in that time, and then you throw somebody on who's small and like a Paul Dickoff, for example, then that's a different type of issue for the centre backs. So it just depends. You have to be I suppose the managers will look at that and they'll be tactically aware of what's going to make the best impact at the time.
When I played against you, though, I just remember, you were very awkward to play against. You had good pace as well, and it was for us. It was a real kind of battle to contain him. We had to be very, very physical to try and upset him. And yet he was still game. He'd get up from anything and he'd get on with it, and he could head a ball. So all round, we had it was a hard game to play against. And when you look back now and the memories we had, God,
do you miss those
games.
types of battles when you're watching football now? Because there isn't as much of that kind of big striker against big centre half.
You do kind of wonder how you would be, and I always say to people, well, if we had the same type of diets, training, the same pitch. I mean, some of the pitches we played on were ridiculous, but it's evolution, and so I think we'd have been able to cope. I think that how things have developed is that hardly anybody plays with big centre forwards now, because they talk about possession based in the middle of the keeping the ball is key, and they say less goals are scored from crosses and so on. I mean, if I'm honest, when I looked at the way how Leicester won the league a few years ago, I found that fascinating, because I almost felt that you encouraged opposition to get balls in the box, because they knew that you had that dealt with, with the two big centre backs, and then if it was Drinkwater or Kante picking the balls up, and then you've got Jamie Vardy. So it was like, and I couldn't. I was watching it. I'm thinking, why isn't anybody picking up on this? But you're right. Yeah, it seems to be totally different.
So you wonder if we had a plan C at Leicester, where you'd have a 4-4-2 with Vardy alongside a big, someone who's on the bench that we could change tactics and go, right. God, we just wonder. Yeah. Because I see Vardy isolated a lot. He scores a hell of a lot of goals, and a lot of times, he's not even in the picture at the moment. But so he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You just wonder sometimes if we did play a little bit more that way, would it work?
Yeah.
Really interesting. We'll pick up the discussion after your news headlines and a bit of Biffy Clyro.
Let's take a ride. We'll take a ride. I wouldn't leave here without you. I am a mountain. I am the sea. You can't take that away from me. I am a mountain. I am the sea. You can't take that away from me. 'Cause you tear us apart with all the things you don't like. You
You're listening to LCFC Radio.
The Queen says she's pleased a constructive and supportive way forward has been found for Prince Harry and his family. It will involve the Duke and Duchess of Sussex going without public funds, and they'll no longer be able to use their HRH titles. David McClure is the author of Royal Legacy.
In many ways, Harry and Meghan have won. Sure, they haven't become hybrid royals and being able to do public duties, but they've won the main thing of financial independence. That means they can go to America and maximise their commercial potential. And, that's a very big issue for them, and it could bring in a lot of money.
Well, meanwhile, the Queen's appeared in public with Prince Andrew for the first time since he retired from royal duties. Her Majesty attended church with her son near Sandringham this morning. The government's considering relocating the House of Lords outside of London. The Conservative Party chairman, James Cleverly, has confirmed it is an option, while the newspaper's reporting York is the frontrunner. Labour leadership candidate Jess Phillips says the party has a blind spot by never having a full-time female leader. There are 4 women in the running to become Jeremy Corbyn's successor and 1 man, Sir Keir Starmer. He believes it's the values of the candidate that matter, but Jess Phillips isn't so sure.
If you truly believe in women's representation, sometimes, and that goes not just for just women, in the way that intersects in other areas, sometimes passing the mic is the greatest way to show that you truly believe in something.
We're being urged to look out for those most at risk from the chilly weather. The Met Office says Northern Ireland has had its coldest night of the winter so far. On to sports news now, and play is due to resume at 12:10 after rain has frustrated England's pursuit of South African wickets on day 4 of the 3rd test in Port Elizabeth. The hosts were 15 without loss in their second innings when the covers came on, trailing England by 276 runs. That's the latest. I'm Daryl Jackson.
The Pre-Match Pint, brought to you by Tang Beer.
Yeah, just an update on that cricket for you. The play is back underway in South Africa, and the hosts are 20 for 1, trailing England by 270 after they followed on from their first innings. They were out pretty quickly in that one. We'll keep you up to date, of course, if anything massive happens there. Big game happening today, of course. It is Burnley against Leicester, and we've got you covered on LCFC Radio right the way through the afternoon. Matchday Live follows us live from Turf Moor with Dan Bates and Jerry Taggart, and then we've got full commentary of the game from kickoff at 2 o'clock, and then later on Manchester United head to league leaders Liverpool, and here is the thoughts of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Jurgen Klopp in the run-up to kickoff.
The front three that they've got, they have been playing for seasons now, and you can see the rotation movements, the understanding between them, and we hope that our three will get that understanding in a while.
It's a very, very important football game. I think we have to learn dealing with with games like this in the right manner. So we did not too bad in the past, but we still can improve.
It's a great challenge for our players, again, to play against the leaders of the league. We've done well against them the last couple of times, but away at Anfield is another matter. You can make sure you enjoy it, but it can also be an intimidating place.
It's strange when you play against a high quality team, but United still is, and they play the way they play. So that makes life really difficult. We had it now with Tottenham. After 70 minutes, I think we had around about 80% possession. That's not normal. How can you expect something like that?
Liverpool against Manchester United is the late game in the Premier League. Both sides seem like they're really up for it. It was obviously a game which is steeped in history, but Liverpool today, very much favourites.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Liverpool, and if you're connected with Liverpool Football Club, this is one that you're really looking forward to. I think they've got very little to lose. I think they'll go there. They'll play with a lot of freedom, and I think it will be a tough game for Manchester United. You know, I don't think that they will be playing with that much confidence going to perhaps their biggest rivals. So I think it's going to be a really tough game. I mean, Ollie in that interview just mentioned the front three for Liverpool, you know, play with that real freedom and movement. And then you look at the situation that Manchester United, where I think Rashford is struggling. Martial's form has been good, but a little bit patchy. Daniel James has been up and down. Mason Greenwood's a young kid. So you kind of guess from what Ollie's saying that he's not expecting them to compete with the performance of the Liverpool team, which is going to be a problem for them, I think.
Yeah, big game, of course.
I look at the 11 players and I think every Liverpool player in every position is stronger. And when you've got that, the quality is just unbelievable. So they're obviously expected to win. Now, Man U could bring their A game and make it a go, but you'd expect Liverpool to win this, and they could win it comfortably. Like I say, all 11 players, better players for me.
Yeah, Jurgen Klopp really respectful of Sir Alex Ferguson this week, saying we got a long, long way to go to get anywhere near the teams he produced in the 90s. Is this Liverpool side one of the best the Premier League's ever seen? Is he being modest?
I think that they're up there. You look at every position, they're athletes. The pace with which they move the ball from side to side, and the team moves over. It's, I mean, the back four and the middle three are very kind of disciplined, and then the front three they're just, they're mavericks really, and they're fantastic players.
They're resilient as well.
Yeah.
They're so focused. They're just well managed.
Physical as well.
And physical, they are physical, very. And I noticed that, all of them.
Yeah.
And they're
Well,
just
we saw
too
it
good.
Boxing Day, didn't we?
Just too good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is the late game in the Premier League, of course. Leicester first up this afternoon at 2 o'clock, and we've got you covered on LCFC Radio all the way through the afternoon. Mike Deane, 500 games as a Premier League referee this weekend. He surpassed that, and he's become quite a character of the game, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's like I say. He makes all the signs, and I think he's just having fun, And I think some of the fun's gone out of the game, and you can criticise a referee sometimes because he's trying to break the ice. I think so his body language says to me, "I'm trying to break the ice. I want to have a little bit of fun." There was a shot the other day where, he picked the ball up off the stand that they have, and he widened his eyes, and people were criticising that. I'm thinking, God, the guy's just trying to show that he's a human being,
Yeah. I don't like referees lose anyway, so let's just leave that.
Well, let's talk about another referee, Paul Tierney. What did he do this weekend, which has really bucked a trend for the Premier League this weekend? Do you know? Or this season? He went and looked at the VAR screen yesterday.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And it resulted in a sending off.
And it was,
It was a terrible challenge.
It was a bad one, yeah.
But about time, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah,
That's what those screens are there for.
I mean, you'll find that dinosaurs like me and Walsh, don't like VAR.
No, it took a while though, didn't it? That's the only thing that's you look at. But we're with it now. We've got to get on with it, and we've got to try and
But that makes more
embrace
sense. What's happened yesterday is the incident's happened.
Yeah, because that was serious. I mean, that could have been
terrible.
a broken. And you see the Aubameyang one that. Yesterday was worse than that, and until you slow these things down, it's sometimes because the game's that fast, you can't see them sometimes. And fair play, that's worked.
The thing that I heard yesterday was that Arsenal had appealed against Aubameyang's red card, and I think that's right. I think he should have got 5 games, to be honest, for them appealing, because it's absolutely
ridiculous. What are they trying to say? That is not that character. It doesn't matter. It's the moment and what you know what you're doing when you're going in, and you knew he wasn't getting the ball.
It's a forwards tackle. I mean, and I don't have anything against him, but it was a terrible challenge.
And you see his, them are the ones. In all my career, that as a referee, when someone intends to hurt someone, you know that. And they can. In our days, we used to we'd tell you, you were gonna, things like that. But I mean, as a referee, when you really is dangerous and it could break someone's leg. I think that's when your referees
absolutely.
have missed a lot of in the old school. That is now, obviously, we've got VAR to see this, and yet you have to slow it right down, and VAR sees it. So
Was that a massive positive though yesterday? The fact that
it has to be.
Consulted the screen. Obviously, throughout the season, everyone's saying, "Well, it's here to stay. There's nothing you can do about it, but you can make improvements," and that is something where
it's going to get
they've
better.
listened
I hope it does. I think it will. There'll always be discrepancies, but we've just got to get on with it. I mean, that goal that was, the millimeters,
10 millimetres.
10 millimeters. I mean, how would you have ever seen that?
I mean, they've set a precedent now, and I don't like that side of it. Where they're measuring the backs of people's heels or whether they're fingernails over the line.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. But fair play to the guy yesterday. I mean, I think the power still has to lie with the referee for me. Anyway, I think if you start taking all the decisions away from the referee, well, you might as well have
you might as well
have a robot.
On the way, we're going to head back to Turf Moor to catch up, hopefully, with Jerry Taggart. Hopefully, he's found his way into the press box, and Dan Bates as well. See what they've got lined up for us on Matchday Live. They'll certainly have the first read-through of the team news at 1 o'clock. So don't go anywhere. We'll have the team news for you first on LCFC Radio. So we'll head to Turf Moor next after the Buzzcocks. Falling in love. It's the Pre-Match Pint on LCFC Radio, brought to you by Chang Beer. Another wicket in the cricket, 26 for 2 South Africa as they trail England by 264. I think that could be over today, couldn't it?
Should be.
Looking that way. You did have a rain break earlier today, so I don't know exactly how that's affected things. But, that's happening in the cricket. In terms of the football, we're concentrated on Burnley against Leicester. It's at Turf Moor this afternoon, and that is where we can go and talk to Dan Bates and Jerry Taggart. Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Jerry.
Good afternoon.
Jerry.
What's up, Brian Deane?
Jerry.
Brian Deane.
It is, Jerry.
How you doing, Dino? How you doing, Walsh?
I'm good.
Yeah, good tags, yeah.
Yeah, good to hear you, boys.
And you?
How's the Lancashire pies, mate? The meat and potato, is it
Walshy,
steak?
I've just had the best
Have you?
shepherd's pie
Beautiful.
ever, mate.
Yeah, well, you say
cabbage.
you say that every week, though, Jerry.
It was that good, I had to go back for a second.
Oh, that's brilliant.
You do that regardless.
It's nice and cold outside, isn't it, Jerry? We're
it's
lovely and
beautiful.
warm here.
I know, but the sun's out. Well, it's
Oh, nice.
fantastic.
Good.
Right,
Fantastic.
go on then. Before we talk football, talk us through the hospitality, and we need a scoring, please, Jerry.
Yeah, so shepherd's pie, red cabbage, brown sauce, beautiful. I'm going to give it 8.5.
I could tell that you're dribbling, aren't you?
Dino,
Just by
listen,
saying it,
you
you're
should
just
know by now that
Yeah.
when it comes to feeding time at the zoo, I'm always stuck there in front of the queue, mate.
Good news. He's fed, he's watered, he's ready to go on Matchday Live as Leicester City look to get back to winning ways. It was a disappointment last week, Jerry, but this will be a bit of a test of their mettle.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. Obviously, Burnley on a bit of a dire run themselves. They've lost 7 over their last 9, lost their last 4 on the bounce, which obviously isn't good for them. But Leicester have a decent record against Burnley. And I think the only 2 times Burnley have beat Leicester in the last 9 games is at home. So this is going to be a bit of a war of attrition, especially for Sean Dyche, because things just don't seem to be going his way at the minute. So he'll be desperate to try and find that winning solution today. And obviously for Leicester, they've just got to get back to basics, I think. Had a couple of hiccups in the last couple of weeks, but a really good opportunity today to come here and get something out of the game because of the run that Burnley are on.
Yeah, they missed a bit of their zip in recent weeks, but that break that they've just had, a couple of days longer than they've been used to the last month and a half or so, that would have done them well.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think, we were talking to Christian Fuchs the other day, and he was saying off air that, they had a couple of days off last week, and I think that will, hopefully that will really help the lads recover from the busy period they've just been through. Obviously, another big week this week and next week, so full steam ahead. But they can't really look too far ahead. They've just got to make sure that they try and get back to winning ways today, and then that'll set them up for the next 3 games coming up.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one in recent weeks because it's been very difficult to second guess Brendan Rodgers and what he's doing formation-wise and also personnel-wise. We're literally 10 minutes away from team news, so we'll know the answers very soon. But again, you're thinking, where's he going with this one? Because another different type of game.
Yeah, exactly. I think with the absence of Wilfred Ndidi, which is obviously a big part of that 4-3-3 formation that he likes to play, then you could forgive Brendan for trying to just tinker a little bit to make sure that defensive part of the game, that midfield defensive part of the game is intact today. So I don't know what way he's going to go, whether he's going to play 3 centre halves or whether he's going to play 2 holding, even 2 hold, so a 4-2-3-1, something like that there. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But it wouldn't surprise me if he tinkers just to try and, make up for the absence of Wilfred Ndidi.
And Dan's with you, guiding us through Matchday Live from 1 o'clock. What you got on the show today, Dan?
Yeah, we've got 2 team news in 10 minutes' time. When you join us for Matchday Live, we'll hear from Kaglar Soyuncu. As Joey mentioned, Christian Fuchs was a special guest on this week's episode of Matchday -2. So we'll hear what he had to say on that. We'll also take a closer look at Burnley, of course, and their run of form that they're on at the moment, as well as hearing from both managers, Sean Dyche and Brendan Rodgers.
Lewis, can I just jump in a minute?
Of course you can.
Please. I know I missed the first 2 earlier on. I was here, but Dan just forgot to tell me. I have got a couple of crackers for the punny old game.
Here he goes. Right, things you find in a garden centre's the theme. Jerry, tag it over to you.
Right, Shed Evans.
Oh, class.
Do you like that?
Yeah. I love it.
Chevelle Morrison.
Chevelle Morrison.
Chevelle Morrison.
Chevelle, not as good as the other one. Go on, Jerry.
Jake Livermore.
Yeah.
And your manager, Jose Hose.
Had it.
We've had it. We had that, Jerry.
Had it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, 3 out of 4 ain't
You was
bad,
eating the
either.
shepherd's pie at the time.
Was you? All right then, boys. That's me done.
Well done, Jerry.
Speak to you
We'll
later.
be back with Jerry Taggart and Dan Bates from Matchday Live in just 8 minutes' time, and that will be the first time that we hear today's team news as well. And that is the thing that's really interesting with Leicester at the moment. They've got so many options, Steve, that recently it's been a case of, okay...
It's hard to read what he's
exactly
going
is
to
it
do,
gonna
Brendan, at the
do?
moment, but this is a game where Burnley are going to be nervous. The pressure's on them. I think it'll be a cautious game from Leicester. I think we've got to just be careful. I think Jerry might be right with the 4-2-3-1 system. It might be a Chowdhury coming in, that bit of toughness in there and that solidity. So going forward, we're always a threat on the counter, aren't we? We've got quick players and we can turn defence into attack very quickly. So this is a game that tactically we need to get right and put the pressure on Burnley. They are on a bad run, and keep that pressure on them and make them make mistakes. Like I say, they're going to be very nervous.
Well, Burnley have to have a go, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They're at home, but like Steve has said, and Jerry, I think what they'll try and do is Brand will probably try and take the sting out of Burnley and try to deny them possession. So if they can take away the fact that they can make it a less physical game by just controlling the tempo, I think that will be, that's the best way to quieten them down.
Yeah, tempo-wise is important for Leicester. They need to fire early.
I think
don't
what
they,
we've got to
with
be,
their speed.
where we've got to be careful here is if we sit deep, then we'll cause ourselves problems. I think we've got to really focus, and I think we probably have done in training, where you keep quite a high line, because, like I said, Woods he didn't want to. He couldn't outpace anyone now, and that will the silly free kicks we've got to be careful of, any corners, because that's where Burnley come alive, and Leicester have been known of crosses not deal with them really great, but look. I think it's important that they just keep resilient, keep that high line, and I think things will work quite well.
Yeah, you feel with Leicester's attacking prowess that they showed in the early stages of the season, today's a game where Burnley are going to be a little bit worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, just to cap what's been said, I think that if Burnley have got a problem today, because if they need the points, they've got to push forward, but what that means is they're going to leave gaps, and we do know that if they leave gaps, they'll get punished, and even like I said, if it's a case of going through the midfield with Maddison, but then looking for Vardy, nobody can live with his pace at the back there, and I think that's where they're going to be quite cautious as well. If they're not, they're going to be naive, because everybody knows what's coming.
Yeah, Vardy does really well against Ben Mee as well, as we know. So he's going to be a threat today. So I fancy Vardy to do well. I really do today.
I was going to say, he's been without a goal for a few games. Had a couple of games away from the Matchday squad as well, Brian. So as a striker, he's just going to be chomping at the bit.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a good opportunity, especially being away from home. Where, like you said, there will be a little bit more space for him to operate in behind. So I'm sure they've worked on that anyway.
How do you see it going then? Let's get some score predictions and first goal scorers, please. Starting with you, Walshy.
I'm going to go 2-0 Leicester. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Vardy with a man.
And for you, Brian?
I'll go 3-1 Leicester. I think they could, we've touched on it about set pieces, but I do think that if Leicester get the first goal, they've got a problem.
We will see what happens. I need a first goal scorer from you first, though, Brian.
Vardy.
There we go. Taking the easy way out, isn't he?
Well, he's
fence, sit.
He's the man, isn't he?
LCFC Radio with all your coverage of Burnley against Leicester live from Turf Moor. Matchday Live follows us with Dan Bates and Jerry Taggart talking you through the next hour. Team news is on the way as well, and then we will have full Matchday coverage with John Dunn on commentary with Jerry Taggart from 2 o'clock. If you're watching on the social media feeds, they are about to be paused, but they will restart at the beginning of Matchday Live as well. We'll be back at half-time for analysis and also an